Hello and welcome back to World 360. Why is Germany in the middle of the UK's fighter jet sale to Saudi Arabia? Could one man decide the upcoming New Zealand elections? And why are women suing the state of Denmark? We answer this and more in today's episode. So first up, the fighter jet sale to Saudi Arabia. Now on Monday, UK Defence Minister Grant Shapps praised Saudi Arabia for its women's rights reforms while speaking at an event at the Conservative Party conference. Forget everything you think you know about Saudi Arabia. Actually, the country is changing incredibly quickly in ways you would think have happened over a long time. Women in the workplace at levels that would have been unimaginable 3 or 4 years ago, he said. My view is very clear that they, Saudi Arabia, are a strong ally and that their society is moving very much in a way we have always called for societies around the world to move, he added. Now we have to look at the timing of these remarks. Currently, the UK is trying to secure a $6 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is keen to buy 48 Eurofighter Typhoons, but Germany appears to be blocking the deal. Why? Well, the Eurofighter Typhoon was developed by a group of British, German, Italian and Spanish companies in the 1980s. Exporting these planes to other nations requires the blessing of all 4 nations. Germany has reportedly been holding out due to concerns of Saudi Arabia's human rights record. It's kind of like India's BrahMos cruise missile, which is a joint venture between India and Russia. And should India want to export these to other countries, it requires Moscow's blessing. Now, the UK Defence Minister's recent praise for Saudi Arabia could definitely be seen as part of the UK's attempts to continue wooing the country despite Germany's perceived pushback. In a previous episode, we had in fact talked about how the UK wants Saudi Arabia to join its fighter jet alliance known as the Global Combat Air Programme or the Tempest Alliance. Now, the Tempest Alliance consists of UK, Japan and Italy. Experts say oil-rich Saudi Arabia, one of the world's biggest defense spenders, could help the 3 nations with the steep cost required for developing 6th-generation fighter jets. Now the ball appears to be in Germany's court. We saw how in July, Germany loosened arm export restrictions to Saudi Arabia, but not on fighter jets. So it would be interesting to see whether it gives its blessing for the Eurofighter Typhoons deal. Whatever Germany decides could surely impact Saudi Arabia's entry into the Tempest Alliance as well. Next up, New Zealand. New Zealand will be going to elections on 14th October and early voting has already begun. But one man could play election kingmaker, in that his decision could very well decide who will be Prime Minister. So let's look at the playing field right now. Jacinda Ardern's successor, Prime Minister Chris Hipkins, who assumed office in January this year, is seeking re-election. He's up against another Christopher Luxon. Hipkins belongs to the Labour Party, which is seeking to form a coalition that includes parties like the Greens and the Te Pāti Maori. Luxon is the leader of the main opposition party in New Zealand called the National Party, who is likely to form a coalition with the far-right ACT Party. If we look at the favourability polls, it suggests that both the leading parties are not exactly in the best position to form a majority in Parliament, and they may need the help of one minor party, New Zealand First. Now, New Zealand First, or simply NZ First, is headed by 78-year-old career politician Winston Peters, who is preparing for a comeback. In the 2020 election, his party failed to get over the 5% vote threshold and didn't get any seats in Parliament. But a One News variant poll published last week showed support for New Zealand First was at 6%, which is above the required threshold to get back into Parliament. Now, Peters is a seasoned politician in New Zealand. He has served as the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister in the past, but his party's anti-immigration stance and attempts to pass legislation that would prohibit transgender women from accessing women's public toilets has rubbed the left bloc the wrong way. PM Chris Hipkins from the Labour Party doesn't seem too keen to pair up with New Zealand First to secure a majority. However, his rival does. Christopher Luxon from the National Party recently said he would be open to working with the minority party to form a government. So keep an eye on New Zealand this week. Some twists and turns are sure to be expected. For our last topic, we're looking at why women are suing the state of Denmark. Before we get into this, we need to look at the island of Greenland. Now, Greenland was a Danish colony until 1953. In 2009, Greenland gained further autonomy and currently has its own local government, but it is considered a self-governing Danish territory. Now, from 1960 to 1991, horrid pregnancy prevention practices were allegedly carried out in Greenland, specifically against indigenous girls and women. They were fitted with IUDs by Danish doctors in a broader policy to reduce Greenland's population. Many of these procedures were allegedly carried out during school medical examinations without the consent of girls. In 2022, the Danish and Greenlandic governments agreed to hold a 2-year investigation into these claims. The investigation is due to report in May 2025. But earlier this week, a group of over 60 women said around 4,500 women and girls were affected by these practices in the 70s and 80s. Now, this group has also sought over 42,000 USD in compensation from the government. Thanks for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint.